As South Africans, we've lost faith in our president. He has proven time and time again to be a president that makes promises but doesn't deliver on those promises. And there's so many things. I remember that at one point when he just delivered a sauna, I don't know which year this was, I was so excited because he spoke about a smart city. You know, I was like, my goodness, this is the technology we're talking about. You know, we want a smart city. Until today, there hasn't even been a shovel or even a map pointing to where that smart city is going to be. And if we can go back to the many sauna addresses that we've had from the president and come back years later to see how many have been delivered, I know many of us will be disappointed.
Sanibona, ngaphambi singene kwivideo namuhla, ngithi angithathe lethuba ngibonge isupport nothando nesikhombise lona lingaphezulu kokucabanga kwethu. Siyacela niqhubeke nisupporte njalo ngokubuka amavideo ethu, ungakhohlwa ukukhomenta, ushare, ulike. Siyafisa ukuzwa umbono wakho. Sicela ke singene kwivideo namuhla. Umsombuluko, iMarch and March eholwa uJacinta Ngobese Zuma beyilontsha iwebsite yayo, yayisiba nemedia briefing. Lapho ichaze kabanzi ukuthi imele ini, iziphi izinto ehambelana nazo, iziphi izinto ehambelana nazo, kodwa iphuze belihamba phambili ukucacisa ukuthi bona abayona i-political party futhi abazimisele ngokuba i-political party. Ese-expose izinto ey'ningi, ubugebengu obenzeke Home Affairs, SANDF wa-expose ngisho i-media uqobo lwayo. Ngakho-ke ngifisa sikhulume ngalezo zinto lezo. Ibibaluleke kakhulu le media briefing enzela ukuthi njengabantu abaphila eSouth Africa sazi ukuthi iMarch and March imeleni, ifuna ukuzuza ini, ngoba osopolitiki sebengena umkhuba noma banomkhuba wokuthi bathathe zonke izinto lezi ezingama-frustrations wabantu bazenza i-campaigning tool. Bethi bangangena eParliament bathule sengathi abakaze baba khona. Ngeke ngenze umzekelo, uGayton Mackenzie waze waduma ngestatement esasithi abahambe, egxuma estage abahambe ngoba wayazi ukuthi lento yama-illegal immigrants iyi-frustration kubantu. Ngakho-ke uma ekhuluma ngayo abantu bazombona njengomuntu okhuluma ngalento abayifuna ukuyibona iguqukile, ngoba abantu base-South Africa banankinga nabantu abasuka kwamanye amazwe bevakashe la eSouth Africa, njengoba nathi senza amazivakashela amanye amazwe. Asibanayo inkinga, kodwa banenkinga nabantu abangena la eSouth Africa ngokungekho semthethweni. Abanye bagcine beyingxenye yobugebengu, kugcine kuthengiswa ama-drugs, kugcine kutshontshwa, kukwebiwa ama-cable. Ziningi izinto ezenziwayo, zenziwa yibo labantu. Uma ungabheka kahle kahle ozamazama 80% or 90% ozamazama abantu bangaphandle. Bakhona abala eSouth Africa, sengake ngayichaza irole yabo ukuthi ikuphi, kodwa abantu okuyibona abaningi nokuyibona abasenza pha kozamazama ilaba ngaphandle, futhi laba abangene ngokungekho semthethweni. So uthe angathola iposition akaphindanga wayikhuluma leyo. Uyabona manje abantu abanamanzi, njengoba kuza ama-local government election kuzobe kuyi-campaigning tool ehamba phambili leyo, ngoba bayazi ukuthi frustration yabantu base-South Africa. Ukhulume futhi uJacinta nange-South African Human Rights Commission. Kukhona umphakathi oze wagcina ushiya amtshotshomba wawo ngoba nabo behlala emkhukhwini, bagcine behlele eholweni lomphakathi ngenxa yokuthi bahlukunyezwa ozamazama la bahlala khona. I-Human Rights Commission ayikaze yazi yasho lutho, yazi iphawula ngoba sebeze bayithega abanye ku-Twitter. Awukaze wayibona ithatha abantu labo aba-responsible for ozamazama basenkantolo, kodwa mathiwa manje ayilwisi Operation Dudula or i-March and March or i-MK lakho izokwazi ukubathatha labo basenkantolo, ngoba umsebenzi wabo omkhulu abawubonayo ukuthi mkhulu kubo wokuvikela abantu abangama-illegal immigrants. Engizokwenza manje ngizocaphuna uJacinta sizwe yena ukuthi uthini, bese mhlambe ngiyaphawula emveni kwalapho, noma uzophawula ngephuzo elithize ngiphawule nami, aphawule ngephuzu lesibili ngiphawule nami, kanjalo kanjalo ngizodecide. Ngicela uzwe la.
Families and women and children are forced to live in community halls where they live in one structure and they share limited bathrooms, while the trigger-happy illegal immigrants armed with automatic rifles continue to terrorize our communities, and our people are slowly losing hope from the institutions that are meant to be protecting them. Yet we have not heard a word from the president of the country. Our people believe that the same strategy used during COVID-19 lockdown would have been implemented in that community. It may not be a health catastrophe, but the fact that children cannot go to school, citizens are being deprived of their right to freedom and dignity, means that it's a matter of life and death. We have also seen an increase in cash and transit heists, and we have a concern with the increased number of illegal immigrants who have been involved in violent crimes in our country. They carry dangerous weapons, particularly those from Mozambique. Today we don't have DJ Warris, who was brutally killed for trying to restore order and reclaiming hijacked buildings. What is disheartening is that amongst those who have been implicated, and he was appearing a few hours ago in courts, is that this person is an illegal, undocumented foreign national from Mozambique. We are not just fighting against illegal immigrants, but we are fighting a system that allows it to happen. Therefore, we are calling on all South Africans who are aiding, abetting, and harboring illegal immigrants, providing them with homes and renting them their tuck shops, to kindly please stop doing so. Section 42 of the Immigration Act is clear that doing this is a crime. That's why we are going to be putting our feet on the ground with awareness campaigns and mobilizing in all communities to help the illegal immigrants pack their bags and go home, but also helping South Africans to open cases against those South Africans who are playing a part in aiding and abetting illegal immigrants. We've also noted a high rise in the abuse of our refugee laws. We note and appreciate that the Department of Home Affairs has gone out of their way and started the consultation for the white paper, a process that we have been part of and participated in, and we've made some very meaningful contributions. And this is contrary to the belief of our detractors. We have always had a considered view that the first safe country principle must apply in South Africa. It cannot be that a person will cross 5 countries to seek refuge in South Africa and then claim that they are refugees, and then many of whom end up as economic migrants instead of them being genuine refugees, because we see them going home and coming back during the holidays, and we wonder what kind of refugees are these. We have also noted that there's a number of immigrants who come to South Africa seeking refuge when they do not qualify for the refugee status. And some collude with the government officials who are working at Home Affairs and get assistance from some politicians to get these documents and increase the numbers of refugees who are dependent on the state coffers. Section 3 of the Refugees Act does state that a person qualifies for a refugee status on the following basis. This is owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted by reasons of his or her tribe, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership of a particular social group. It is outside the country, or his or her nationality is unable or unwilling to avail himself or herself of the protection of that country, or not having a nationality and being outside the country of his or her former habitual residence, and is unable, owing to such fear, to return to it, and owing to external aggression, occupation, foreign domination, or events seriously disturbing or disrupting public order in either a part or a whole of his or her country of origin or nationality. This is what the Act says. Now the million-dollar question is, does Nigeria, for example, meet the requirements of the above? If not, why are we seeing greater portions of our cities and towns, such as Point Road or Sunnyside in Pretoria, being taken over by Nigerians, who are known drug dealers, traffickers in South Africa, and human traffickers in South Africa? This is a clear sign of the abuse of the Refugees Act. They do not only destroy the future of our country by condemning thousands of young people to being drug addicts, and this will not only affect the labor market, but we will also have families, our culture being extinguished. We will begin to see their culture being dominant, as we see in certain places they have taken over. They are now creating their own nationality, which they call South-Gerian. Linking the permanent resident status has caused too many problems for the country, with hundreds of South African women entering into transactional marriages with foreign nationals in order for such illegal immigrants to stay in our country and plunge us deeper into crisis in terms of resources and sustaining the country. We strongly support the amendment of the Refugee Act, particularly where it conflicts with the Constitution of the Republic, because Section 27 of the Refugees Act states that refugees enjoy full protection, which includes the rights set out in the Bill of Rights. However, if you carefully read the Constitution of South Africa, and particularly the rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights, you will appreciate that not all of them are enjoyed by non-South Africans. As stated, we draw your attention to Section 22, as it does not say everyone, but it says every citizen has a right to choose their trade, occupation, or profession freely. This section does not envision the benefits of immigrants. If the context and logic of interpretation of Section 27 is that refugees have the benefits of the rights in Chapter 2, without stating that they enjoy the benefits of certain rights, then we might soon face another constitutional disaster where refugees may actually want to vote, when Section 19 of the Constitution, which is in the Bill of Rights, states that every citizen is free to make political choices, which include the right to vote and form a political party. So clearly here we have got a conflict between what the Constitution says and what the Refugee Act says. And this is going to create even more crises for us. And this is not the only conflict that we've noted, by the way. There are many others. What our Constitution says about limited resources is also stipulated in many of the other immigration laws and criminal laws and laws in the country. And some seem to put that against the Constitution of the country. So less than 7.6 million people pay personal income tax in the country. A country that has a population of over 60 million people. Only 7.6 million pay personal income tax, with just 1% of the taxpayers earning over 2 million, while approximately 28 million citizens are dependent on social grants in the country. This is 47% of the population of our country is dependent on social grants. And this is an amount of 267 billion that is spent by our government every single year. So it's clear that the country doesn't have enough resources to cater for foreign nationals coming from all over the world and then hide behind the Constitution, then make the Constitution and its laws contradict each other. Section 7 of the Constitution reads, with Section 36, makes it clear that the rights in the Bill of Rights are subject to limitations, and there's also something that is called fair discrimination. We are calling upon our government to apply these principles stated by the Constitutional Court in the case of Subrumani and Grootman, for example, of such cases, that it can only provide services within the available resources. We are not a welfare state of the world. You can't feed your neighbor when your children are hungry. And as we have seen now, there's a number of politicians who just go on platforms and podiums and they just say, the law says, without taking into consideration that you cannot keep glorifying the laws that continue to oppress the citizens of the country and continue to make the state run out of funds and resources. As much and much, we will conclude by proposing a few solutions for the country, aside from making sure that our laws are implemented correctly and interpreted correctly. Effective border management control is of utmost importance, which is something that we have not seen in a long time. People walk in and out of our borders freely and do as they wish, making it easy to commit crimes, especially since South Africa is growing in the ranks of being a capital for human trafficking. We call for mass deportation of illegal immigrants. Those that are already in the country need to be reminded that being in the country illegally is a crime and they need to self-deport, and if they refuse to do so, then the government needs to make sure that they promote mass deportation. We want the Constitutional Court to clarify the meaning of everyone in the Constitution, because over and over again, as much and much, we have emphasized that there's no constitution in the world that was meant for everyone. If it was meant to be for everyone, then the Constitutional Court needs to make a declaration on such and needs to make sure that it clarifies this. We also propose for South Africans to go out in numbers and open cases against those other South Africans that you know that are harboring illegal immigrants. We can only win this fight if we work together as South Africans. And we know that some South Africans are not on board, as they are friends or have family that they're harboring that are illegal immigrants. But at the end of the day, the laws of the country must take precedence. In conclusion, we want to say that March and March is not a political party. March and March is a citizen-led movement that seeks to call on all South Africans in numbers all over the country to come and be a part of the change that we want to see. And this forum that we want to build and want to form is going to be there, and it's going to need South Africans who are lawyers. It's going to need South Africans who are researchers. It's going to need South Africans who are doctors. It's going to even need South Africans who are security guards or cleaners to come on board and be a part of the change that we want to see in this country. Because clearly our laws are being broken each and every day while we sit back and wait for government to be our solution. We've seen over the years that our government does not provide solutions. Instead, they create more problems that need money to solve them so that they can have more money at their disposal. We therefore wish to state that when we said we will march and march until we win, that is exactly what we meant. We also wish to make it known that on the 24th of March is our anniversary as March and March, and we have therefore taken on something very big for us. We hope we'll be able to pull it off, which is a 2-day protest where we will march and march for 2 days, seeking for our government to give us attention on the issue of illegal immigrants. It's going to be on the 24th and the 25th of March, and it's going to be the anniversary of March and March. Our freedom was won through South Africans being on the ground, not on their phones. Unfortunately, back then there were no cell phones, and we are just unlucky that people now protest only through their phones. We call on all citizens to come on the ground, be part of the movement as we work to make sure that every single day we deal with the issue of the influx of illegal immigrants. Stop buying from illegal immigrants. We've seen a lot of children are dying from the food which is not regulated, the standards are not checked, etc., etc. Stop keeping them in your homes. Stop harboring criminals. We know they are human beings, and we know that sometimes it's difficult to detach from human beings. But what is more important is the survival of this country, not just for ourselves, but for the future of our children as well. I thank you very much.
Emveni ke kwale nkulumo yakhe aseyibekile ke kwaba khona ithuba lemibuzo. Ukuze sonke isikhathi asizukuyidlala imibuzo la kodwa sizodlala impendulo. Uma ephendula uzobe usuyaqonda ukuthi kazi umbuzo obubuzi ubuthini. Ngoba akuyona imibuzo complicated abayibuzile, imibuzo elula nje kakhulu. Kodwa ke ngoba umuntu okhulumayo kuJacinta, uma ephendula umbuzo uyaphendula bese yenaba umuntu okwaziyo noku-explain. Uzo-explaina bese uyaqonda ukuthi umbuzo ubuthini ubusukaphi. Ngicabanga ukuthi Max ngenza kanjalo sizokonga isikhathi ngicela uzwe la.
Talking about companies and what we can do when it comes to profits, I think we did mention that in the sense that we have asked for the government to make the law stricter when it comes to people who are hiring foreign nationals, because that's the only way that it will work. Right now, the government makes you pay a fine once, I think, then you pay a fine again, and then only on the third, what's the word that I'm looking for? Yes, offense. Do you then get charged? You know, so it's like a fine. Business people can pay like 100,000. You come back again and pay another 100,000. And the chances of our officials coming back again are slim, because as you were also mentioning the issue of bribes, some officials go there knowing very well that the person is not in compliance so that I can make money of it. You know what I mean? If the government doesn't offer an opportunity for a person to kind of pay for hiring illegal immigrants and they get arrested, like first attempt, there's no second chance about it because you're breaking the law knowing very well that you're trying to maximize profits. But unfortunately, when you live in a capitalistic state like ours, disguised as something that it's not, you will find that business people are always being put on a pedestal to make them believe that they can get away with anything because they've got money. And I think we've seen this quite often, that business people are not seen as offenders when it comes to the issue of illegal immigrants because they've got the money. Therefore, we are meant to be just, eating at their feet. Meantime, they are the biggest beneficiaries of this because those who are there committing all kinds of crimes are making themselves even richer. So the rich, as I mentioned, are only getting richer in South Africa, while the poor are going to end up groveling even for 50 rand, because once you start saying that rich people are immune to any sort of law and poor people must grovel it to rich people in order for them to make means, then you're creating a state where we already are the only country in the world, we're the number one country where the gap between the rich and the poor is the biggest in the world. So it's only going to get worse if our government continues to allow this. But unfortunately, we have politicians disguised as politicians, but in the meantime are business people looking out for business interests. Which is why it's always difficult for politicians to come out frankly and say, this is wrong. Business people comply and abide by the law because they know they're also protecting themselves if they're protecting business people so that they can continue to create a slavery system where people are dependent on governments. This is the system that we're saying, that we're fighting. We are living in a system where rich people will do any and everything to remain poor and to keep poor people poor so that they can come begging at their feet. And the only way to fight this is if South Africans in unison say no more is no more. The same way we kept saying that apartheid is oppression, the current system we're living in is an oppressive system. Whether people want to believe it now or later, but one day they will see exactly what we're saying now. We have a government creating a system of oppression for poor people to be more poor while creating more richer people to be rich for their own interests. And then on the issue of us having a political party that we align with, as different members of March and March, I don't even know what political parties they are part of, but I'm sure they are part of some political parties. We encourage people being part of a political party, because remember, that's what a democracy is about. We encourage people to make their own choices and say, hey, I'm Jacinta, but I'm this political party. For us, it's not an issue. We just want, when we're March and March, to identify as March and March together, because it's not a political event or activity. But if Big Man one day decides that he's going to join another political party, we're not going to stop. We're not going to say, you're no longer a member of us, because no, it's part of his rights. It's part of his choices as a South African. But also, we would like to make a call to South Africans to use whatever political affiliation that they choose to have wisely. Because remember, this is you voting. This is you having a voice. And whichever political party you choose needs to echo exactly what you're saying. They can't go to parliament and then change their stand. You need to know what your political party stands for. If your political party has never said anything about putting South African first and wants to talk about Africa and the African unity and the whatever, then it's not part of what we are advocating for. Because right now we are advocating for South Africans to be put first in South Africa. 30-something plus years later, we've done the Africa thing. We've tried to look good to Africa. But what we've realized is South Africa is the only country in this African vision and dream that's bending over backwards to make the African dream a reality. Because some are saying to us, I'm hearing the most ridiculous thing, and I hope you guys can capture this for me, maybe it'll answer. When people keep asking about why do we target black foreigners who are African like us? Now let us clarify. March and March is not about race. As you can see, there's a white Mlumu here. There's a Charo Indian here, We play around race because this is who South Africa. It's not March and March that's saying this is the identity of South Africa. That's not us saying it. This is the identity of South Africa. It's a rainbow nation. Whether some people like it or not, whether they don't like a white person or Indian person, it doesn't matter. But the dynamics of this country are that we've got different genders, we've got different races. This is who we are. Now, when it comes to the issue of African foreigners, as they claim, South Africa has laws, just as much as Angola, as much as Zimbabwe, as much as Malawi, as much as Mozambique has laws. We don't go to Zimbabwe to break their laws and say, oh, I'm African, now you can't enforce your laws because I'm African. If one South African person has ever had that experience, please bring them to us and let us talk about it and say, well done, thank you. Now at least we know that the African dream is not a South African thing. Because it's ridiculous for people to want to make March and March and the enforcement of the law a racial thing. We're not going to go now and go to the airport and look for white people and say, hi, you're white, bring your documents. Hi, you're white, bring your documents. We're not going to do that. We're going to go to where we know are areas affected by the issue of illegal immigrants. And when we get to those places, whether you're pink or orange or green or purple, we're going to enforce the laws of the country. Whether you're European or African, it doesn't matter. The issue is on the breaking of the laws. It's not about which part of the continent you're from or what skin color you have. That is not what we're here for. That is not part of what we do. We are not going to be targeting white people just so that we seem like we are fighting all races. No, where we are, where our resources are, where our resources need to be protected, we will protect those resources regardless of race if you are an undocumented, illegal foreigner in our country. And then ENCA, Span Code, you asked us about the SONA. Can I leave that to the last hour? We'll go to Pumzile first. Talking about home affairs and people of home affairs taking bribes, corruption, etc. Now, we have a serious issue when it comes to home affairs and all the corruption that goes on there. We have a serious issue. We've written to the Home Affairs, we've met with the Home Affairs Department, and we've uncovered, they will tell you, a lot of corruption that we send to Home Affairs, and they end up using that to charge whoever the person is. The Department of Home Affairs has never been hostile to us sharing information with them when it comes to corrupt officials. But it feels like because they've done it for so long, some of them are like comfortable with just being criminals, you know? It's the only way they can sustain a life that they've built, you know? Someone takes like 5 of their children to like expensive schools based on the money that they envision that they will get from the corruption that they're going to do. So it's not an issue of a person not getting a salary, no. It's a person getting a salary but wanting to live way above the means of that salary. That's why money starts exciting South Africans, whether it's officials or whoever, because you have a life, but that life for you starts not getting uncomfortable because you have a vision now of you getting all kinds of corrupt money, whereas there's people who just want to survive. Where I'm going with this is that when you talk about Home Affairs and documents, we have a problem when they're documenting the wrong people, when they're selling documents, etc., etc. But we cannot understand an issue where a foreign national says they are paying for your visa or they are paying for documents to stay in the country. The mere fact that you have to go that route means you know you're committing a crime. So the official and the immigrant are both wrong. So this is a message we keep sending to everyone, not just here, but in the world. Please, can we not have people forcefully trying to stay in South Africa? When your visa has expired, do the right thing and go home. Apply for your visa when you're at home. Applying for documents in South Africa to forcefully stay in South Africa. You say, oh, I'm a refugee, I've been in the country for 20 years. It's not an excuse for you to demand to be documented. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You can stay here for 5, 10, 15 years. At the end of the day, if you did not follow the legal ways to be in the country, and if the government says, no, we're not going to document you, going to find it fraudulently is not the right way of doing it. And it also doesn't take it away from the fact that you are also committing a crime. So we are calling on the Home Affairs Department to continue to deal with some of their officials. We've seen them making their system difficult for fraud, but the most shocking things, like, I don't know how these officials think of these criminal things that they do, because now when they realize that I can no longer be documented just by showing up in Home Affairs and saying I want a birth certificate, because the system requires you to hand in certain documents, they start now taking documents of dead people and using them to be documented in the country. Why the desperation? Like, that's the part that I don't get. Why the desperation for immigrants to be in the country by all means necessary? And more often than not, it's those that are here in the country doing wrong things anyways. It's not the ones that are supposedly refugees or asylum seekers. It's mostly criminals doing their usual criminal ways of staying in the country. And then Osibankulu asked us about the SONA and what we wish for the president to mention and the promises. I don't know if you really want to hear this, because this is as frank as we're going to be. March in March, as I said, echoes the voices of South Africans. And I know that what I'm going to say is not just something that I'm saying for myself, but it's the sentiments of millions of South Africans. As South Africans, we've lost faith in our president. He has proven time and time again to be a president that makes promises but doesn't deliver on those promises. And there's so many things. I remember that at one point when he just delivered a SONA, I don't know which year this was, I was so excited because he spoke about a smart city. You know, I was like, my goodness, this is the technology we're talking about. You know, we want a smart city. Until today, there hasn't even been a shovel or even a map pointing to where that smart city is going to be. And if we can go back to the many SONA addresses that we've had from the president and come back years later to see how many have been delivered, I know many of us will be disappointed. but especially on the issue of immigration, because our president continues to pretend as if it's not happening. And he's not going to wish the issue away. He's not going to pretend like South Africans are unhappy with illegal immigrants. Whether the president likes it or not, sooner or later, whether at the SONA or when journalists decide to corner him, we need him to provide us a solution for the current immigration crisis that we have in the country. Whether it's stemming from zamazamas to the influx of people stealing medication, whether it's from the criminals that are hijacking buildings, or whether it's from the children being trafficked in and out the country, all of these things are things that he's very much aware of. But we've never heard a thing from the president. And we will continue to put pressure on not just the president, but the presidency and government to say something about it, and not only just say, but do something about it. Because pretending that the issue doesn't exist is not going to make the issue disappear. And unfortunately, when you deal with the issue that deals with people's lives in this matter, if you continue to ignore it, you make the tensions even worse. Like I said, if the government of South Africa is a government for the people, then they need to understand that when the people are saying, Mr. President, we are tired of the immigration crisis in the country, do something about it, and he continues to ignore it, he's only putting more pressure on the people who feel like their voices are not heard to want their voices to be heard by any means necessary. And by that, I need to make it clear that we are in no means promoting violence. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying that we know from the trends that people, when they are frustrated, they'll either go to the road and start burning tires, or they'll go and do something ridiculous. And that is the only way that our government responds. And we are asking for the government to find a better way of dealing with problems than to pretend they don't exist, or to leave them there hanging until they reach crisis mode. We are calling the South African government to act today on the issue of illegal immigration and the influx of foreign nationals who are in the country committing crimes and taking over our lives completely, because we're no longer free. We feel like we're being oppressed by foreign nationals who are invading this country. Thank you. Like we said, we've got this Human Rights Commission on our back with the issue of hospitals, and we also want South Africans to fight these non-profit organizations and NGOs with us who continue to think that they are the voice of South Africans while oppressing us. So if we can make a call to all South Africans, please join us. I know some of you are saying you're scared for your jobs or whatever, but one day you won't even have that job if we don't fight today. So I'm making a call for all of us. Put everything aside. If your boss needs an explanation of what March and March is before you take to the streets, we're more than willing to come to your offices and explain who we are, so that they don't fire you from work when you are seen on the ground, putting your countries first, fighting for the survival of this country, and fighting for your children's future. You can't time it. Remember, South Africa was colonized for 300 plus years, but only after 300 years did we manage to get like proper freedom, because we moved from colonization to apartheid, and that system lasted for 40-something years. Then now we've got a democracy that's here for 30-something years, and we see that it's not working for us, you know? And a democracy is effectively supposed to create a situation, which is what I'm happy with, where the IEC now is saying big man can stand as a candidate for Ward Ban. You know, if he has such ambitions, we can't stop him, and we actually encourage him because of the work that he does. He understands the ground and our people. If Lindani or Belinda want to go out there and say we're forming a political party of ours, but based on the principles and things that we've learned from March and March, we will be more than happy to support them. Or if Teresa says, oh no, I am there by Point Road, I want to stand as a councillor so that I can help deal with the issues, we would be more than happy if our members took up that role. But for me, I feel like what I need to emphasize is that, you know, it's easier to go out there and and fight a system when we are united. And currently as South Africans, we're not united. Like on social media, we can all say the same thing, right? It's easier to type something. But when it's time to show up and show that we are united as a unit, as South Africans or as KZN people, we're still lacking. Which is why as much and much, it's so important for us to build the thing of patriotism. That's why we're saying today, we're launching the movement as a movement that encourages patriotism, which is something that is deeply, deeply lacking in the country. You know, you see someone standing and singing the national anthem of the country and they're scratching their head or doing something funny. Some people don't even know what the flag looks like. Some don't even know what our national plant is. We've got all these things, but we see that our government doesn't see it. You know, in other countries, when you go, even when they're giving you your citizenship, to say that now you're a citizen of this country, it's a big deal. Like it's an event. You go to the offices, you take a pledge. You say, I now pledge my allegiance to such and such a country. Not in South Africa. In South Africa, nobody takes the issue of being a South African seriously. It's like we live for day to day. We don't realize how wonderful our country is. We don't speak highly of it enough. We don't celebrate ourselves enough. We are too invested in these small. You know, if I was to start a gender war today and say, men are like this, men, my daughters in South Africa like this, trust me, that would gain more engagements in this country than me talking about the economy of this country. Which means we've got a serious problem. If South Africans are not worried about the economy of their own country, but when you talk about a Soapy or DJ Black Coffee having an event in Moses Mabhida, you'll get the remarks that you want. And nobody funds organizations like ours that want South Africans to be patriotic. Because they know that a lot of people benefit from events, a lot of people benefit from drugs, from alcohol. Alcohol get big beneficiaries. So once you start speaking something that actually directs something South Africans towards a common goal or a vision towards a future for this country, you're creating a problem. That's why we're getting so much resistance from foreigners right now, because they realize that we are ringing alarm bells in South Africans saying, hey, wake up. This is actually what's happening in your country. When all along they were saying these things in private, we are always drunk, we don't care about. They were saying them in private, in the comfort of their circles. Now we force them to come out and say exactly what they think of us. And you can hear from their sentiments that foreigners are comfortable with South Africans being on drugs, being on alcohol, going out and partying and not caring about the country. They'll tell you to your face, 30% pass rate, you know. These are things they say to our faces. But all along, we thought these are people that we live in harmony with. You know, for the longest time, we didn't see that foreigners are so aggressive towards South Africans, that they don't like us. That's the honest truth, they don't like us. They will come to South Africa and use our resources, milk it for all that it has. Most of them will come even get documents in this country to go to other countries. So our country becomes like a passage to a great life. You know, our country is just an economic, like, slave queen to other countries, if I can call it that. Like, please quote that, that's a nice saying. Our country is like an economic slave queen, you know, to other countries where everyone just wants to come here because I want to survive. Ask these foreigners, as many of them as possible, what they contribute to this country. You will realize that they are not contributing to the country. They are just here to take. And if they can take from even our 10-year-olds that are in school and put their own children, they will do it without a heartbeat. And make you feel bad for fighting for your own South African children to be in school. They'll make you seem like you're the one who's crazy, because they are the ones who also have a right. Imagine coming to someone's house and then saying, I have a right to your food, even if your children don't eat, but we are all on the same streets, so why can't I eat? Yes, my kids must eat first because I'm a refugee. I'm sad. I have a sad story. I'm from a poor country. My family is poor. You guys have been rich. So if you are rich, I also have a right to eat. That's the current country that we're living in. That's the system that we've allowed ourselves, and our children will adopt that. But trust me, you see how bad it is now. 2-3 years from now, if we don't win this fight, it'll be 10 times worse. So we don't have a choice. We have to win. That's why our motto is until we win. Because not winning is not an option, especially if you're a mother, if you're a father. Because trust me, very soon, even your jobs there, there'll be foreigners there. There by the microphone in front of the camera, writing news. Because journalists will be writing news that are more favorable to South Africans, and that's going to be wrong. Because they are going to be taking over the country, and their stories must dominate how foreigners are this and that. Trust and believe that is the direction we are headed to as a country. And your votes are very important. Because some people are out there allowing this to happen as politicians. Remember when you said that politicians are not speaking the same language as us? Look at the political parties that are speaking the language that is anti-March and March. Look at them. Look at what they stand for. Look at how they are benefiting from this. If you're looking at Mandela Commission today, you will have certain political parties that are benefiting from it. Certain political parties that are benefiting from the discourse and the problems that we have in the country. That's why it's very important that people stop being attached to political parties. If a political party is not serving the interests of South Africans, that political party must be extinct. If it means that it must never exist ever again, that is what must happen. Currently, we have a lady called Tandile Jojozi with others who are pushing the issue of FET colleges right now. Because a lot of FET colleges, I think you might have seen from that parliamentary committee where they were talking about the issue of foreign nationals with no scarce skills actually running FET colleges and other TVET colleges. And they are on the ground. They've written to Budima Namela. There's also a number of people who have joined us from other different institutions. Because, you know, if you're looking at fancy institutions, this is how, I don't even know how this happened. Because when you look at the laws of the country, right, they are explicit in that if you are a foreigner in the country, even if you are here to lecture, you can't be lecturing English as a foreigner. You know what I mean? You come all the way from wherever to come and be a lecturer. You come and be a political analyst. Like, why do we have political analysts that are foreigners in our country? What for? What skills do they bring to the country? Do we not have our own? Because this thing people take for granted, and still until now I see it's starting to eat into the middle class as well. So the middle class is now realizing that this thing is not immune to them because sorry guys. So they're starting to realize that this thing is not immune to them. You see doctors on the streets taking to the street marching, teachers, lecturers. Everyone is on the ground complaining that foreigners are taking over their jobs, whereas they're not providing any special skills. That's why the law was there. It was there because there's no need for us to have lecturers lecturing English, teachers coming from Zimbabwe. We've got 700 and something in KZN alone, teachers from Zimbabwe coming to teach. Why? When we've got unemployed teachers. You know, there's something that we mentioned also in our presentation, which is called a fair discrimination. It's something we want to emphasize in the Labor Relations Act. that there is something called fair discrimination. Because I can't discriminate against Upriti if she's a foreign national for the sake of a South African. That makes sense. It's not rocket science. And there's articles, there's judgments on this, where there's a lot of fair discrimination cases that have been won because it doesn't make sense. We went to speak to Minister Aaron Mutharedi, who said to us that they have now started, well, it's actually in effect, because I saw in one of the universities, refusing foreign nationals to study medicine. Like, completely. Like, if you're a foreigner, you're not allowed to study medicine. It's currently in the country. Because he said, while he was at Home Affairs, they'd get a lot of court cases, taking them to court from foreigners saying, you taught me, now you must hire me. Because, I mean, it makes sense. Why would I teach you and then say, like teaching foreigners law, for example, you come and you learn law to what? Obviously, because you must practice. And you're going to practice which law? South African law. So these things start from primary school, where you're teaching them. You take them, when they finish there in Ellington, where must they go? They must go to a high school, right? We're going to have the same problem. Now we must go to a high school and remove them so that we can put a South African child. It's a never-ending story. When they finish high school, where must they go? They must go to university. Now we must go to university and fight them to remove them to put South African children. So a lot of people think they're not affected now because maybe their children are still in primary school. Oh, primary school, it's only primary. Why are you harassing poor primary school children? But it starts there. Everything, if you want to solve it, you start at the grassroots. We're not going to go there to universities because probably by then the government has given them documents or they've found their way through Home Affairs and they've gotten their documents. But there, at foundation phase, that is where our government should be saying no to foreign children. Because if you're saying they deserve a right to an education, you as the government must build them refugee camps there and educate them there. Not at the expense of South African children, never. Never. Our children must be going to the beach while their children are in school, learning. From their high school, from high school, it's a cycle, this thing. They've penetrated everything, these foreign nationals. SANDF, CFO, the person who's in charge of the finances of our entire military is a foreigner. We have soldiers being told that you can't be harsh to illegal immigrants. I received messages from members at the border saying we can't touch them. You can only just look at, you're a soldier. They swear at you, they throw stones at you, but you can't touch them. Why? Because we've got people who are foreigners who've infiltrated our military. Their soldiers don't eat. Where do the finances come from? From a person from Ghana. Why do we think that a person from Ghana is going to prioritize South Africa? We've got this Human Rights Commission, their head of research, the person who decides that let's take March and March to court, is a person from Uganda. That person decides, oh, according to my research, March and March is the problem, let me take them to court. That person. Mind you, the Human Rights Commission is funded by us through our tax money, but the decisions are made by someone from Uganda. Have we ever heard anything being said by the Human Rights Commission about Zamazamas? No. Have they taken anyone to court for Zamazamas? No. Have they taken anyone to court for the 4,000 South African children who until today in Gauteng are not placed? No. But trust me, when it comes to March and March, going to hospitals, you will see them. Firsthand, they'll pay the best legal teams. And that person, by the way, from Uganda, his father and grandfather were leaders in Uganda. They were decision makers in human rights, but Uganda still has the worst human rights crisis in the country today. But he's not in Uganda helping those Ugandans have their human rights, but he's here in South Africa telling us about our human rights. That is how much we've allowed this to happen. We've allowed it to go on for too long. And we must question everything. Whether they call you xenophobic or whatever, we don't listen to that anymore. We need to take this country back from all these foreigners, even in high place building. I saw someone complaining that in Tswane, I don't know who and who is head of this, in Zimbabwe, in Johannesburg, their head of this is someone who's from Zimbabwe. We saw a judge who wants to head the labor courts being someone from Zimbabwe. How does this happen? How do we allow this? And it seems like we're raising petty issues to some people, but not when there's an influx of foreign nationals. If it was normal every day, like one Zimbabwean here, one Ugandan there, it's not that in this country. In this country, we are being completely taken over. There is an invasion. I heard that even some of your media houses now are being run by foreigners.
Yes.
Yeah, you see. But you sit here and some of you and you act like you are not hearing us. Unfortunately, we know it's your job, but one way or another, you have to stop writing articles that are anti-South African. You have to. Now it's no longer about us as much, it's about you as well and the future of your children in your country. If your editor says don't cover a story that's showcasing the reality of what South Africans are happening, then don't cover that story. In one of those radio stations there, they said they mustn't cover a story that has much and much. We are fine with that. But they wanted to go and cover a story that has to do with the Department of Education, but not cover much and much. How is that balanced reporting? There's no balance there. But we are fine because you guys are here, they can stay, it doesn't matter. So we are calling on, like I can't emphasize enough how every single South African job and South African identity is being stolen right now. You two, the twins, one way you'll see another one of those people who are there that you are interviewing, they're going to do the same thing you're doing. But they're not going to be covering your stories, they're going to cover their stories. Very, very soon. They also have twins, maybe twin girls. So guys, when we talk about much and much protecting us, we're protecting our entire resources. We don't have a problem with foreign nationals. We emphasize this again. But as long as they're here doing good things, and they are here, there's no, like we said, there's too many laws being broken to accommodate foreign nationals. You can't be telling us that you've got FET colleges where there's foreigners, and then when we talk about it, you say it's because we hate foreign nationals. No, we are saying that the law doesn't allow it. Whether they're here legally or whatever, at the end of the day, the law does not allow for a foreign national to come and sweep the floor. That's just the law. It's not us. So people must stop making this about us having vendettas or hating people. No. The law is the law. Next thing, foreigners are going to be voting, like you said. Because the Refugees Act says they are allowed to do all the things that we are allowed to as citizens. But then we also say that foreigners are not allowed to. You see the contradiction there. In our very own laws, the Refugee Act says they're allowed to do everything we're allowed to do. But then the law says only South Africans are allowed to vote. Then the Constitution, then you don't know which is which. If you are making reference to say that they have all the rights that are written on the Constitution, on section what, but in that very same Constitution it says that foreigners are not allowed, then what are we doing as a country? Why are our politicians not bringing these things up? What are they doing in Parliament? What are they doing in Parliament if they're not raising these issues? Then we've got laws that are contradicting each other. If they're not raising that South Africans are tired of illegal immigrants, what are they doing in Parliament? Of course, we've seen some political parties doing an exceptional job at raising the issues that South Africans are concerned about. And that's why we as much and much continue to engage such political parties and such departments as well. We're also currently speaking to the Premier's office. We're working with them. We've even asked them, because they've got an operation. It's a program called Engangeni Ngomnyama Yafohle. We have asked them as the Premier's office, please, can we be part of that movement? We don't mind. We will go all out. And we are really grateful because the Premier's office has listened to us. And we are working on being part of such programs where we can be hands-on and can be seen to be making sure that our laws are implemented. My chairperson is saying, like I said, we will always caution our members against political parties that are not in the interest of what we stand for. Because you can't be march and march and then also be preaching that people must find creative ways to come into the country, for example. I'm just making an example. So that doesn't make, it's a contrast, you know? And we're not saying that those political parties must stop preaching whatever message that they're preaching, no. We're just saying that's not who we are, and that's not what we stand for. We stand for South Africans through and through, from beginning to end. If we need to discriminate against people fairly for South Africans to be put first, that must be done. And if it means that we must change the constitution, that must be done. Because currently, we are dealing with a crisis we didn't know many years ago, 30-something years ago, when they even wrote that constitution. They probably didn't know that we'd be dealing with an invasion now, you know, disguised as legal. So it's very important that is done. And then you mentioned something about political parties infiltrating us. I think, for example, when we have a march, we make it explicitly clear that the march is for March and March, please don't wear political regalia. But you know people will always take chances. But we go out of our way to emphasize this. Like, even before the march starts, I know there was even a case where Nozi was furious this one time because some members, like, they're saying, I don't have any other thing to wear. And they're like, okay, switch your t-shirt around, wear it inside out. As long as you understand what we're saying, we're not trying to be labeled as any political party. But there will be instances, for example, where March and March will go and support Action SA, for example, and Action SA will come and support March and March, but it's not a program of March and March. Or even if it is a program, but it's not limiting to you being there as a political person, wearing a t-shirt, say Action SA or MK or ANC or EFF, whatever, you know what I mean? You are allowed to just come there and probably picket. We do that a lot with pickets because pickets is difficult to say don't wear, well, because it's just a picket, you know. But with our marches, we are stringent and we are clear that it's only march and march gear or your own attire that you must wear. We do, like I said, work very well with certain political parties, and we're not gonna disassociate ourselves with those political parties. In fact, when it comes to votes and elections, if it means we can promote those different political parties, we will, you know, we will. Because, for example, in some political parties make it explicitly clear in their manifesto that they are anti-illegal immigrants. And if we can highlight and shine the light on the fact that the IFP, for example, has a manifesto that is explicit, that says that they are anti-illegal immigration, we will support that, unapologetically so. We will support them. Whether people say it's because it's taking away IFP or whether they're giving us money, we don't care. In fact, if the IFP can give us money, we'd appreciate it. We really would. If all of them food, Action SA, guys, we need money, you know. We've got operations that need money. And currently South Africans are using their own money. That's why we even have places where we ask people to make donations, etc., because money is what we need. The only thing is we're not going to take money in a non-transparent, illegal way and from people who don't serve the interests of what we're doing. We're not up for sale. That's not what we're doing. We're here to save South Africa. And if South Africans want to give us money, guys, money is what we need. Like that, I can't emphasize enough. We need it. And if there's business people who want to support and want to be behind the scenes, we have a lot of those. Sometimes they come through, they're like, I want to support you guys in your next march with t-shirts and whatever. You don't have to give us like proper money, pela money. You know, you can give us resources. We appreciate that. You can transport our people, whatever that you can do. Some bring water, some bring food. Anything and everything is appreciated because the fight is still long and still hard. And we're fighting, like I said, we're not only fighting illegal immigrants, we're fighting the system, we're fighting politicians, we're fighting beneficiaries, we're fighting even people who believe they are in love. So yeah, our problems are me.
Ngase kube khona engekuphawulayo ngizobe ngiyayona le nkulumo. Konke uzwele. Mina nawe sidibane lapha ku-comment section. Siyixoxe le ndaba eqeda xoxo sisi la uma Ngobese uganele kwaZuma. Siza ukuthi wena ubona kanjani kukho konke lokho akushilo. Kodwa ngale kwalokho mina nawe sidibane kwivideo elandelayo. Ngiyabonga kakhulu. Ngifuna ukubonga kuqala nakubhuti uMalusi okuyena oshuthele ivideo le. Ngoba ivideo ephelele kanje ayikho kwenye indawo yekuphelwa nayo. Azommeli TV. Funa simbonge kakhulu ngoba uyena oshutha ivideo ephelele ukuze sigcine sinenkulumo ephelele sazwenze manje abanye baneqephu kancane kancane even naye March and March bakhiphe nje ama-clip amabili. Mina nawe sidibane kwivideo elandelayo ngiyabonga kakhulu.